So I just wanted to make this video to talk about empaths and empathy. And something I've noticed tends to happen online quite a bit with people talking about this. And, I see this as a general theme of people taking base concepts of what should be normal, really, should be normal human nature and human characteristics, and then exalting those characteristics to some kind of high status level, and then therefore exalting themselves for possessing those exalted characteristics, which to me, like I said, are just normal characteristics. And to me, empathy totally falls into this category where just having the capacity to put yourself in someone else's shoes and identify with their emotional state means that one is a woke empath, or even just an empath without the whole woke thing. But that's another thing, the whole woke culture. I'm woke just because someone is starting to acquaint with some pretty, philosophically rich and spiritually high ideals. And the second they start identifying it, they're suddenly woke and given the gospel and all of the judgments that come with it, as if they have the merit to, just because they are acquainting with something which, once again, to me, is normal. Alright, it is normal to start acquainting with more spiritual ideas and the deeper meanings of life. It is normal to have the capacity to identify with another person's emotional state. Doesn't mean you're a superhero. Doesn't mean you have a big cape on your back with a big S and E on it for super empath. And that's the thing, an empath, I believe they exist, and to me the differences between just normal empathy, somebody who has normal empathy, and an actual full-blown cape-wearing superhero empath, is that an empath is somebody that can detect other people's emotions and their states, and even their mental states, and what's going on inside them. They can detect it with such clarity and accuracy, and even depth, that they can really understand quite intimately, and they're quite sensitive to other people's energy. Now, it's easy here for things to get blurred and confused, and people might think, well, I get really affected by other people and their moods, and it dramatically affects me. And sometimes I have to shut off or get away just to nurture my own energy. But that's the thing. Being affected by someone's energy in a way which to one is overwhelming doesn't mean that you have an overwhelming ability to be empathic, and that is the cause. It could be that. It could be that. It could just be that you do empathize on people's emotions. You do pick things up like any normal person should and does generally. But it could be due to other factors of your weakness, or if you're fragile or vulnerable and you're low in energy yourself, low in confidence and stability, then it might not be that you have a super defined sense of empathy, meaning you're an empath. It might be that you're just regularly processing other people's emotions and identifying with it. And even that, on a regular level, can be overwhelming, because even that demands more processing power internally and figuring things out in terms of how does this person feel, when maybe you're not in the strongest position to understand how you feel and to regulate your emotions. And so a lot of the time this can come up and affect people and make them feel guilty, obligated, pressured and stressed and anxious, because they feel the need to be there for someone else. They feel the need to process another person's set of emotions and identify with their problems, when they're just not in the position to. Like a child isn't in the position to play parent and help somebody as an adult person would. Instead, they need to be focused more on developing themselves and their own fears and their own problems. It can be very self-centered. A lot of time people might take self-centeredness out of a need to really consolidate one's own energy and self-esteem and confidence. They might take that lack of that confidence, and then it being overwhelming, processing other people's states of emotion as being an empath, when it might not necessarily be that. Really, being an empath means that, it doesn't mean that you can't feel weak and vulnerable and all of this stuff. And it doesn't mean that if you are feeling like you're an empath, that is the case. No doubt, people that are empaths, when they do feel weak and vulnerable, will find it very hard to be around lots of people, or even anyone, if their energy is a little bit out of sync. Okay? But my point is that we shouldn't, I think, take normal traits that we should just aspire to have be an average, normal thing of humanity. We shouldn't take those things and exalt them so high that just returning to what is essentially a basic fucking thing seems to be such an exalted act. It seems to be so spiritually telling, all right, of one's ability. In the same way people talk about union and unity and coming together. And to me, we don't need to aspire to some over-the-top ideology of unity and union and working together in harmony as much as we just need to co-function more effectively. We need to focus on being cohesive with each other. And if people were cohesive with each other like they're meant to be, like the same fingers on one hand operating in synchrony to lift an object, we don't say that the hand is aspiring for unity and higher consciousness and oneness. We say, okay, all these different organisms and all these different things of our body are working together to provide one outcome, and they are working together effectively with cohesion. Therefore, cohesion is unity, and it's not this big thing idealistically to aspire for. It is something that we as a humanity in general overall have lost. We have lost that silent language that unites us universally and has us moving symbiotically like a flock of birds or a herd of animals, and we've gotten individuated and separated, lost in our own voice, lost in our own heads. And then when we finally return to what was essentially the original way things maybe were, when we return to that after getting so estranged and so removed and disconnected, then we herald that movement as being a new age consciousness, us reaching for that next rung on the ladder of enlightenment, when really we're just returning to a basic modality of being and operating and interacting with each other. It's basic. Shit is basic. It's not, and the same thing applies with the empath thing. Everyone has the feeling to be empathic. Most people, not everyone, but most people, they don't wear capes. They just say that they empathize. Because that's the thing. You can have people that don't care, psychopaths, sociopaths, who can empathize, but they're not sympathetic. That's the thing. Empathy doesn't mean you're an empath. It doesn't mean anything enlightened at all. You could be an arsehole, closed-minded minimalist who still can identify people's emotions quite accurately and still choose to not care. Still choose to do things that will hurt other people knowingly, whilst being empathic. So it doesn't automatically come with a special set of ability, a special set of mind. Everyone is special, don't get me wrong, but being an empath doesn't mean you're enlightened. It means that you have an ability, like mirror neurons allow. It's in your genes, it's in your physiology to allow for this to happen. It's not special. It was by design that we can relate to each other and understand and mirror each other. Some are very sensitive with it. To those people, sure, empaths. And I mean sensitive to it not because it's too overwhelming, because they've got weak reserves. I mean they're sensitive even when they're in control and they've got full energy and they're shielded. They still cannot help. But, and these people, sometimes they can touch something. And they'll have a whole bunch of images and feelings and stuff, information, just flood their mind. And they can gain special insight on things in ways that is truly exceptional. Those people can wear a cape all they want, if they want to dress it up as, something hoo-ha. But even then, I would argue that is a rung of the ladder which maybe we already existed on in the past and exceeded beyond, truly. And we look at it now and think, well, only a minority of people are returning to that. How special? Give them a cape, give them a crown. But ultimately, there's different states of existence that we can activate within ourselves. Different states of being, different capacities we can unlock and develop. And I think it's important to acknowledge that we're no different. Not because of all those things. We're not different than everyone else. We're not divided. We're not in some way superior to anyone. Everyone generally has the capacity, for the most part, to unlock and activate, develop these same states. Alright, so really it becomes a matter of, it's not about being special, having a cape, being powered and superior, because that's ego. Really it's about understanding what is natural, acknowledging that we have removed ourselves from the natural world, and then with humility and a message that says you can do it too, returning to what is essentially basic and natural.